name of frick are you two doing, Mayor Aaron?
Mayor Aaron? You got me all wrong. My retribution name is Turfburn, and this is Diaper Rash. And well, since Jilloween's over, we figured we'd take out the decorations in the most retribution way possible.
Why are you being so destructive?
Because today's review is Reckoning and Retribution?
Whatever, you have to clean it all up.
Well, Diaper Rash, looks like we got quite the mess to clean up. You want to help me?
Nope, see you when it were to be ya.
Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. And welcome to a very exciting review today of Elite Series 90 Reckoning, or Mia Yim as most people know her as. Now, truth being told, this pre-order came about a month earlier than expected, so I am super excited for this. I'm a huge fan of Mia Yim and thought this figure looked excellent when I saw proto images, so I pre-ordered 3. So with that being said, let's take a closer look at the figure, starting with it MOC. Alright, so let's start off by taking a closer look at the packaging itself, which it is excellent, and you previously saw this in my reviews when I covered Elite 89 Nia Jax, both versions, because this is the new updated Elite style box, and it looks pretty cool. It's got a black and blue overall theme with that little certified authentic sticker on the front. We got an image of Reckoning or Mia Yim on the front. Now, I am going to say, first and foremost, it is a little disappointing that this is not a 2-in-1 figure. We'll talk about that later. I really wish Mia Yim would have gotten an Elite of herself. But this is kind of a cool gimmick, and it looks like a great figure. So, either way, we get Reckoning on the front. On the side, we have that photo just larger. And on this side, her name. And on the back, we have this nice little bio here. And then the rest of the series. So with that being said, let's try to open it up here. It is a little bit more difficult than the previous Elite lines here. We have a piece of tape there. Almost cut my hand off. We have one on the bottom. There. Okay. And then one at the top. Holy guacamole, man. So bear with me. We have one at the top there. All right. So I think we cut all the tape. Flipping it up here. And then get that out there. And we got this nice little fold out opening. I love that. I think that's pretty neat. Little backdrop there comes out. I like to save these. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I save them anyway. And we have the figure itself. So let's cut her out and get a closer look. Elite Series 90 Reckoning. This attire is from the November 30th, 2020 edition of Raw, where Dana Brooke would defeat Reckoning. This was a revenge match for Dana Brooke, who was attacked by Reckoning backstage, removing her from the Survivor Series team. Alright, so my first impressions of this figure are wow. I'm actually blown away by how awesome it is in hand. Now, when I first saw the 3D rendering images, I fell in love with the figure and I thought this thing is going to be awesome, but it's even better in person in my opinion. Now, I am going to first and foremost say that mask is not removable, and that might be disappointing, but with the way the mask fit her in real life, they had to have it molded on. The only thing they could have really done is had an extra head, and I wish they would have given us an extra head so we could have had an actual Mia Yim figure. It's also important to note that in the match that this attire is based off of, her mask falls off halfway through. So, like I said, if it was removable, I think it would have looked really goofy. I mean, refer to Mustafa Ali from Elite Series 90 and see how bad that mask looks. So, yeah, I think they went with the right choice being molded on, but I wish they would have put an extra head in there so we could have had a Mia Yim. Now, let's take a closer look at the accessories. So, the one that we didn't get in the 3D rendering images is this awesome hooded sweatshirt. Now, this fits her great. It is a soft goods. It's got the Retribution logo on the front, and it has a nice hood to it. Now, this is a great look. And it's important to note that she does come with a pair of semi-open hands here. So you could switch out the hands and have her kind of holding the hood. And I think that looks great. But she does come packaged with fist hands, and those are good too. So let's remove this hooded sweatshirt and see underneath. So it is easy to take off, despite my struggles. I promise it is an easy accessory to take off. And yeah, it's a nice little addition there. Now that we have that off, let's take a closer look at the figure, starting with the face. Alright, so before I dive in and cover the details of the face on this figure, I wanted to talk about the hair. And the hair sculpt itself is very unique to her and looks awesome, but more importantly, I'm happy to say that it does have a bluish tint to it toward the back. Now, I say that because when I first saw images of this figure, it was hard for me to tell if there was any tint to it, and I thought it was just plain black, which is disappointing, but I'm happy to say that it does have the accurate blue tint to it, and yeah, even colorblind Mayor Aaron can see that, and I'm so happy. I think that looks awesome. Now, something else that's really cool is this removable bandana that sits on her head. Now, it is removable by pulling it back and going over the ponytail, but what I like about it is it fits very snugly on her and looks great. A lot of times head accessories by Mattel look really silly. I mean, refer to any skull caps or even caps, and they look weird, but this bandana looks freaking awesome and fits her great. Now, taking a closer look at that face paint she has, it is very unique and obviously iconic to her Reckoning character, and it's painted on very intricately. And now let's talk about that mask. Now, I mentioned before that it's not removable, and that is a letdown to some, but not to me, because in my opinion, they had to have it molded on for it to look right, for it to look snug and proper. I mean, refer to that new Mustafa Ali figure and how that mask fits him. It does not look good. So the fact that it's molded on makes it look great. I do wish we also got an extra head that didn't have the mask on. That's how I think they could have got around it. But we didn't, and that's disappointing. But the head that we did get with the mask does look awesome. And that mask is molded on and looks great with a lot of little intricate silver details on the sides, on the tops. And the one thing I am going to say, and I am going to point out, is if you look at where it crosses over the mouth, she, in real life, has little silver bars that go over her mouth. And she has those on this mask, however, the paint application doesn't exactly line up perfectly. And that's kind of a letdown, but it's such a small, intricate area. I don't know if it was possible, but yeah, so it's not really noticeable unless you look up close, but that is the one disappointing thing I can say about this mask, is the silver doesn't really line up with the bars like it should. But either way, I think this face is freaking awesome. It looks amazing, but like I said, I wish it had an extra head. So moving on down to the attire, the first thing that really stands out to me in a great way is that silver paint application on her top and also the sides of her bottoms. Now, the reason that stands out so much is because a lot of the women's elites and women's basics don't have a metallic shine, metallic paint applied to their attire, and it really makes the attire lose most of its character. So the fact that we get that silver, that metallic silver painted on the top and the sides of the pants is not only accurate, but it gives that attire the character it deserves, and it looks freaking awesome. Now, continuing with that top, here it is, a completely uniquely molded piece for her that goes all the way around to the back. We can also see her little tattoo she has that goes up her spine. Looks like in a blue ink. And then she has real intricate paint job in the middle of that molded chest piece there, with black paint just going across. She has these little wrist gauntlets painted on, and it looks okay. It looks okay. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty neat. Now moving on down to her bottom half here. Her bottoms are completely painted on with a little bit of molding in this area, and the biggest piece that stands out is the molding in the mid-calf area, which simulates the pants being rolled up or pulled up, which is very accurate, and it looks awesome, and I'm glad we get that molded. Now, as far as the paint application goes, like I mentioned before, that silver, that metallic silver pops, it shines. It looks so freaking good, y'all. And the little intricate paint we have with that white design, the piping that goes around, looks really good. And even that little Retribution logo is cool. And then moving on down to her footwear here, we have these ankle-high shoes, which is very accurate. And she even has her little dragon ankle tattoo on the outside of her ankle. So as far as her attire goes, I honestly don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's almost perfect, really. And I freaking love it. All right, so next up I wanted to do a little comparison and talk about head swapping here between her basic Series 113, which is on the right, and on the left we have Elite Series 90. And I know that on the left it's technically Reckoning and not Mia Yim, but it's Mia Yim. It's played by Mia Yim, and it was a very short-lived character, so let's talk about these two figures. So a lot of people were talking about doing a head swap and keeping this body but putting this head on that body to make a Mia Yim Elite. But I honestly don't think it'll look very good, because even though this basic 113 Mia Yim, it's a serviceable figure, but in my opinion, it's a placeholder until you get this Reckoning. Because I don't think that scan is very good. Now, I have gone on record saying that I think the scan's better in person than it is in images, and I agree with that. But after comparing it to this Reckoning figure, I don't see Mia Yim anymore in this basic. And I think if I put this basic head on this Elite body, it won't look like Mia Yim, quite frankly, honestly. And I know obviously her face is covered up here with a mask, but you can tell that this is Mia Yim, and I think it's pretty spot on. But here in the basic, doesn't really do it. Doesn't really do it for me. So I really think this scan, even though it's completely unaltered by a mask being molded on, is way worse than the Elite, and I honestly wouldn't suggest doing the head swap. And I got multiple Reckonings, and I don't even want to do that head swap because I think this figure as a complete package looks excellent like this. So yeah, it depends on what era or what Mia Yim you want to display. Like if you want an NXT Mia Yim displayed, then yeah, you'd have to go with that basic and you could get it pretty cheap. But if you're just a huge fan of the superstar themselves, Mia Yim, I would 100%, 1000% go ahead and get this Reckoning Elite because it is excellent. And even though the character and gimmick was short-lived, this is the best version of Mia Yim that is available. So I would highly suggest getting this one. So moving on to Articulation. Now we are going to cover the head first, and the reason this is a huge deal is because from Elite 88 on, the heads were meant to be swappable. And I was informed of this because I had a horrible experience with both my Nia Jaxes from Elite 89 where their heads barely freaking stayed on. Barely stayed on. And I know the heads were meant to be swappable, but there's no freaking way they're supposed to be that loose to where they barely sat on that ball joint. So with that being said, I was very nervous because I love this figure so much so far, and I was worried that the head was just going to fall off. And I am happy to say that it is firmly on there. Now, I probably could rip it off if I put a lot of pressure, but I don't really see the point here. If you really want to take it off, you could just boil some water and do it that way. But yeah, so I'm happy to say that head sits on there very firm. So, whew. Now, her arm, she's on that ball joint, can go in all different directions. She has an upper arm swivel. Her elbow is double jointed, which is nice because when you put on that hoodie and put on the semi-grasping hands, you can make it look like she's pulling up the hood or pulling down the hood, but we have that maximum flexibility where you can really do a lot there. Now this upper torso has this movement pattern where we can go in all different directions. We can side bend, forward bend, back bend, and go in circles. We have that waist swivel. We have that hip on a ball joint. We have that upper thigh swivel. The knee is double jointed and can really flex. I just don't want to mess the paint there, so I'm not going to. And then we have that mid-shin swivel here, which is usually at the top of boots, but with this unique molded pattern, I'm happy to say that they still have that articulation there, so you can still swivel it there. And then moving on down to her feet, she can planar flex down, dorsiflex up, and also rock to the sides here. And then her wrist can obviously swivel here, and her hands can flex and extend. So, yeah, obviously the articulation is superb. I'm glad that we're now really starting to see these double-jointed elbows in all women's elites. And here it really works. There's not a whole lot inhibiting her motion. And the fact that her head is firmly on that peg is amazing. I was really terrified. And it's important to say that she can move left and right and look down a little bit. She can't really look up too much, but hey, as long as that head sits there good, then I'm happy. So yeah, great articulation. And here's one last look at Elite Series 90, Reckoning. Alright, so I'll be honest with y'all. This is my favorite figure of the year so far. And that says a lot because there have been some amazing women's wrestling figures this year. Elite 85 Liv Morgan, Elite 87 Asuka, Collector's Edition Elite Zelina Vega, just to name a few. But this one is my favorite. Is it the best women's wrestling figure of the year? I'll let y'all decide. I'll have a fan vote for the Jillies Award Show this year, so it'll be a lot of fun. But this is my favorite. And overall, I give Elite Series 90 Reckoning a perfect score of a 10 out of 10. This figure's tremendous. And I know the Reckoning gimmick was very short-lived, not very memorable, and that might turn off a lot of collectors on buying this figure. But for what this figure is, it is a perfect representation of that Reckoning gimmick. Now, I know it is really disappointing to me, and a lot of you, I'm sure, that we didn't get a separate head that was unmasked, so we could have a proper Mia Yim Elite. But what we get here is a molded mask that looks great, and I'm glad it's not removable because it would have been way too bulky, it would have looked awkward. So I do wish we got that extra head that didn't have the mask. But in my opinion, I can't score a figure based on what it doesn't have. I can score it based on what it does have. And what it does have right in front of me is near perfection. I mean, like I said, you can tell that's Mia Yim even under that mask. The detail in this figure is great. The paint application is great. The unique mold that they use for her is awesome. And this little hoodie's great. So, I don't know what it is about this figure, but this is, like I mentioned, my favorite of the year. And honestly, I would advise any wrestling figure collector out there to get this figure. And if you're a women's wrestling figure collector, I highly, highly, highly suggest that you get this figure because it is so unique. And maybe that's why I like it so much. Because how many women's wrestling figures do we get that have masks on, right? So this is awesome. I can't say enough about it. I had an absolute blast reviewing it. And I would say go, run, don't walk to pre-order and get this. Thanks for stopping by LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. For a first look at all future women's wrestling figures, make sure to hit like and subscribe to become an official resident of LumberJillville. Now, I have a lot of really fun and exciting videos planned throughout this month, and especially in December, and a lot of really exciting women's wrestling pre-orders coming. So make sure you don't miss out on those. If you want to support LumberJillville, head on over to ProWrestlingTees/LJV and check out our merch shirts. Also, the Treasurer and I have a podcast weekly posted at 6 a.m. titled LumberJillcast wherever you listen to them. Other than that, I hope you all have a great night, y'all.